like to have been there for the whole conversation.
No.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Clerk will call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy Charles Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Devin Allen, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation this morning is going to be delivered by Pastor Matt. Is it Sturtevant? Sturtevant from Hope Church in Fort Worth. After the invocation, please remain standing for our pledges.
Would you bow with me? Almighty God, thank you that you know us and that you care deeply for each one of us. Thank you for the privilege that you've given us to live in a society and a county where we have the freedom to vote. Thank you for all the men and the women who have faithfully served our county for so many years. In this meeting today, we ask for your blessing. Please give wisdom and insight to those that are making decisions. We ask that the work done here today and the decisions made would benefit all of the residents of our county and our region. We pray that you would uproot evil and not allow it to get any footholds among us. I ask that our city and our county might be a place of peace where goodness and fairness and justice is practiced. And it's all this I pray in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the Court, we have 3 items on the agenda that we'd like to bring to your attention this morning. The first one is it's under Community Supervision and Corrections, item 8D1. We're going to hold that's a consent item, but we're going to take that off of consent, and we're going to hold that until after closed today. Also under Human Resources, item 8E4. This concerns the change in the table of organization. We're going to consider that after closed also. And then finally, members of court, under purchasing, item F7. This is a RFP 2018-095. There's a revised court communication on that particular item. The only change in that revision was that we were one number off on the account code, and we simply corrected the account code. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Court members, you have before you the minutes of our regular meeting of February the 25th.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. So we move the consent agenda around a little bit. You now have before you the consent agenda.
Move approval. Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. We have some proclamations and resolutions. And Commissioner Brooks, it looks like you may have the first one.
Thank you, Judge. I have a proclamation regarding Girl Scouts Week, and I will read it into the record. Whereas March 12, 2020 marks the 108th anniversary of Girl Scouts of the USA, founded by Juliet Gordon Lowe in 1912 in Savannah, Georgia. And whereas throughout its long and distinguished history, the Girl Scouts have inspired millions of girls and women with the highest ideals of character, conduct, and patriotism. And whereas through Girl Scouting, girls gain courage, confidence and character to make their local communities and the world a better place. And whereas more than 2.5 million current Girl Scout members nationwide will be celebrating 108 years of this American tradition, with nearly 60 million women who are former Girl Scouts and offering living proof of the impact of this amazing movement. And whereas locally, the Girl Scouts of Texas, Oklahoma Plains currently serves 21,000 girls throughout the council who earn over $1 million each year from cookie sales while giving back to the community through service. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the Commissioners' Court of Tarrant County, do hereby proclaim March 8th through the 14th, 2020, as Girl Scout Week, and further applaud the commitment the Girl Scouts of Texas, Oklahoma Plains, and the Girl Scouts of the USA have made to girls throughout Tarrant County and across the nation. In witness whereof we have hereunto set our hands and caused the seal of Tarrant County to be affixed this 3rd day of March 2020, and I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Before I call up the Girl Scouts group, you each have Girl Scout cookies. And these are courtesy of Jeanette Martinez of my staff, who is a Girl Scout board member. Now, to accept the proclamation, we have Becky Burton, CEO of the Girl Scouts of Texas, Oklahoma Plains. We also have the following individuals. Come on forward, Becky. Jason Burnett, Chief Operating Officer. Cynthia Odom, Executive Vice President, CFO. Marilyn Jones, Chief Community Relations Fund Development Officer. Jessica Lewis, Communications Coordinator. Dr. Deanne Sanchez, Board Member. Pat Miller, Board Chair. Marcia Ete, Board Vice Chair. Norma Cardenas, Board Member, and Jeanette Martinez, Board Member. Y'all all join me at the podium, please.
You ain't getting that camera from away from her. She ain't letting loose that camera. Now quit trying to hide behind that camera or behind Roy.
Thank you.
Hold on.
You let me off first?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. On behalf of the Girl Scouts of Texas, Oklahoma Plains, we appreciate this honor and are privileged every day to provide leadership experiences for our girls in this community and across the state as well as across the country. So thank you so much for your service, and we really appreciate y'all declaring next week Girl Scout Week, and thank you for all that you do.
Thank you.
And Jeanette, thanks for the cookies.
Commissioner Johnson.
Well, it's that time of year again, Tarrant County Junior Livestock Show, and I got to shorten my list that I'm going to call out this morning. I have no court members on here. However, 2 of our elected officials I have not heard from. I'm sure it's lost in the mail, but Mary Louise and Sheriff Bill Waper. Sheriff isn't here, but if y'all pass on to him that
He'll be looking for
we
him.
need a check from him.
Is that it?
And I do have a proclamation, Judge, if you would read that into the record, please.
You betcha. Whereas the Tarrant County Junior Livestock Show was established in 1950 as an opportunity for youth to exhibit and compete with their livestock and home economic projects in a Tarrant County show, and whereas over 100 volunteers continue the tradition with committed service in conducting the show through the Tarrant County Junior Livestock Association Show Board, comprised of members representing the Fort Worth Farm and Ranch Club, Tarrant County 4-H clubs, and Tarrant County FFA chapters. And whereas 4-H clubs and FFA chapters provide youth with educational and extracurricular opportunities to develop life skills, leadership, community service, and an appreciation of agriculture. And whereas during the 70-year history of the Tarrant County Junior Livestock Show, thousands of youth have participated and benefited from this worthwhile educational and achievement activity. And whereas 821 exhibitors have submitted 1,945 project entries for this year's show, which signifies the completion of their projects. And whereas through the work of the Tarrant County Junior Livestock Show Association, Tarrant County FFA chapters, and the Tarrant County 4-H program, community sponsors and donors contributed more than $500,000 toward the youth of Tarrant County through their support of this show and sale in 2019. Now therefore be it resolved that we, the Commissioners Court of Tarrant County, do hereby proclaim March 4th through 7th, 2020, as the Tarrant County Junior Livestock Show Days, and encourages all residents to participate in the activities at the Will Rogers Complex in support of our county's youth. In witness whereof, we have hereunto set the hands and caused the seal of Tarrant County to be affixed this 3rd day of March, 2020.
I move approval.
Second.
We have motion to second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And we're honored today to have R.L. Phelps, our Tarrant County Junior Livestock Show Executive Committee President. R.L., have a spot, there you are. And also Jeff Newcomb, he's our Executive Committee Treasurer. And Maina Haggard, member of the Board of Directors. Also, we have Lauren Hall, FFA member, and Kendall Kane, 4-H member. I want to announce, too, that Kendall won a $10,000 scholarship at San Antonio this year. So congratulations. And this is over 40 years that I've been doing this, and it's my privilege and pleasure to do it every year. So y'all just keep up the good work. I'm moving a little slower than I did 40 years ago.
Hey, we all.
Thank you very much. And any comments that y'all would like to make, we'll get some pictures. We all got an elevator together.
Thank you,
Any comments y'all would like to make?
Tracy.
Yeah. hear from you, young lady.
Thank y'all so very much. It's been an honor. Currently on my 7th from last year showing, and it's been a wild ride. It's been such an honor to be up here today, representing my chapter and my family. So thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Tell them what you're going to do when you get out of where you're headed to.
I got accepted into Tulsa Welding up in Oklahoma, so I'm very excited for that. I'm really happy. So yeah. Well, as she said, thank you for everything. This is my 10th year showing and my last year. I'll be showing lambs and goats at Tarrant County this year and breeding stock. My one that won me my 10,000 scholarship, she's actually going to go to Houston. And if she wins there, that means she's won every major. So it'll be big, and let's hope I can win another scholarship. But thank you for everything that y'all do.
Thank you. And again, Commissioner Johnson, thank you so much for what you do in that regard, too. Go ahead.
Thank you again for everything that y'all do. This is our numbers are up again this year. A little bit bigger, better show. It's going to be quite an event to come see. And thank y'all and JD for everything that y'all do to help me make this happen, along with all of the good help that I have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And anyone can come out that wants to buy one of these projects, fill out an application, they'll give you a bid number, and I'll help you bid. So, come on out.
Yeah, watch out for that.
Is it this Saturday, JD?
This Saturday, yes.
I will be there.
And the sale starts at 12:30?
Yes, sir, 12:30.
12:30.
Speaking of that, one more thing. If you do like to come on Saturday, we have a VIP luncheon on Saturday morning at 11 o'clock. And if you'll let JD's office know, I will have you parking passes so you can get up there into the building and have a spot for you guys. And we would appreciate everybody to come, actually. It's show just for our county kids. So we appreciate y'all's support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we had Judge Ellen Smith, who we recognized last month for 25 years of service to Tarrant County, retired this past Friday. And there was a resolution of recognition for her, and I'll move for its approval.
Second.
We have a motion second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Now it is time for our employee recognition. And again, I kind of tell everybody, it is one of my favorite times of the month. I really enjoy this because we do get a chance to recognize our employees who've been here, the increments of 5. So we start off with 5, and I think this time we go all the way to 30. But we have employees, I think 45. Craig Maxwell and Debbie Snyder used to be able to tell me that, because Debbie was one of those that was kind of hoping one day she might get to be I got to think about the longest serving. I won't say the oldest, I'll just say the longest serving employee. But we've got some that are, 47, 48 years now? Okay, Robin, Tina, one of y'all. You don't know. Y'all supposed to know. If Craig was here, he could tell me right quick. But that's all right.
Check it out.
We'll check it out. We'll check it out. 5 years, as I call your name, you stand up. If it sounds like your name, you stand up. If it's where your name should be in the alphabet, you stand up. And we'll get through this with only the small amount of ridicule of me and making fun of how I pronounce names. And it's going to happen pretty quick this time. 5 year, Amy Burdan, Criminal District Attorney's Office. There you go. There's she. Juan Castanon. Okay, Sheriff's Office. Vince Estelle, Sheriff's Office. Joseph Graves, Constable, Precinct 7. Samantha Jordan, Criminal District Attorney's Office. Okay, where's Sam? She didn't come down, huh? Trial. Just hate it when work gets in the way of these things. Jason Kuchera, Information Technology. Frida Londenholm, Precinct 3.
Yep. Couldn't make it.
Couldn't make it.
She's having to work.
Elaine Langford. I'm glad somebody over there is.
Yeah.
17th District Court. LaShawn McCuller, Facilities Management. There he is. Okay. Natha Kaur Ortez. Okay. Did I get anywhere get close?
Pretty close. Not too long.
Yeah, pretty close. Brianna Ramos, Public Health, WIC. Thank you. These are our 5-year employees. Thank you very much. Now for our 10-year employees. You can sit down now. Well, I scare everybody. I tell them if you sit down too early, I'm going to really get after you. Now for our 10-year employees. First is Jackie Bridgewater, Sheriff's Office. Alma Espinarzo, Public Health. Dodie Foster, Sheriff's Office. See, 5 years, y'all come because it's the first time. The 10 years, you just kind of begin to lose the. Allison McDoy, Public Health. Yay! Thank you so much for being here. Marvin Morton Jr., Precinct 4 Operations. Marvin, thank you. Loanne Nguyen, Public Health. You can thank the previous commissioner for me getting that last name right, I guarantee you. Valerie Philibert, Public Health. Nara Reed, Public Health. Debbie Rimmerman, Tax Office. Donnie Scott, Juvenile Services. Donnie. And Shannon Zellers, Domestic Relations Office. Shannon. These are our 10-year employees. Now for our 15-year employees. Numi Abuelos, Public Health. Did I get close? Don't embarrass me. Kelly Andrus, Sheriff's Office. Verdal Baker, Sheriff's Office. Mark Kurd, Sheriff's Office. Ty DuPont, County Auditor. Ty. Angelica Cisneros, Flores Cisneros, District Attorney's Office. Patricia Gregory, County Clerk's Office. Priscilla Johnson, Domestic Relations. They always bring their own cheering section. Susanna Lee, Purchasing. Karen Martinez, 372nd District Court. Jonathan Thomas, the Sheriff's Office. Cheryl Wheeler, Medical Examiner's Office. These are our 15-year employees. I was reading for a reason, I think. Now for our 20-year employees. Damon Call, the Sheriff's Office. Joanna Cook, the Tax Office.
Woohoo! You gotta hype my girl, come on.
Tammy Ingram, Criminal District Attorney's Office. Etherine Jefferson, the Sheriff's Office. Douglas Legan, Juvenile Services. David Mora, Juvenile Services. Catherine Ramirez, Constable Precinct 4. Michael Royfield, Fire Marshal's Office. Is he here?
Right here. Back there.
Now, do I understand that you may be retiring here fairly soon?
Pretty quick.
We appreciate your time and your service with Tarrant County. Thank you very much. Beretta Smith, Juvenile Services. Jerry Stewart, Criminal District Attorney's Office. And Jackson Wilcox, Sheriff's Office. These are our 20-year employees. Let's give them a hand. Now for our 25 plus, I call and talk with them, and I was out of town this past weekend and actually didn't get back until late last night, so many times I had talked to them actually the weekend before. And I always tell folks, I'll see you on Tuesday, and the first time I did that, the guy said, it's not next Tuesday, it's not this Tuesday, is it? So I hope nobody showed up last Tuesday for this deal. The first is Joni Bryant with the Sheriff's Office accounting. Is she here? There she is. Started out at the Sheriff's Office as a clerk, then became a detention officer, was in administration at Labor Detail. Noticing the sleeve. Then went to TCC in the procurement area and then to accounting. She said, I have absolutely loved the opportunities that the county has given her, the different people she has had a chance to meet. She said, you know, I have just really enjoyed my time with Tarrant County. Joni, thank you so much for your 25 years of service. Next is Addie Garcia with the District Attorney's Office. There she is. Started off in the Sheriff's Office, I guess in the Auto Task Force, and then to the DA's office as an administrative assistant, and now she's the not illegal, she is, you just don't want to be illegal in the DA's office, I'm just telling you. She became the legal assistant in protective orders. She said, what I have loved most is getting to know and help the victims that have come through there. You know, we think a lot of, okay, we're prosecuting over there, but I think this office also does so much to help the victims that they're basically defending. You got a pooch running around over there that they can come in and they can pet the pooch, and it's a dog. Okay. She said, I have loved the variety of the work. I have loved the flexibility that the work has given me. She said the people that she works with have always been there to help to help you celebrate or to help you when you're not celebrating. And so that's something that has meant an awful lot to her. She said, I can't tell you how fast the time has gone by, 25 years has gone by, and she said it has really been a blessing to work for Tarrant County for 25 years. Abby, thank you so much for your 25 years. Next is Tracy Ridge, 25 years with Cscd. There he is. Started out in the auditor's office and was there for about 20 years, and then went to Cscd as the manager of administrative services. When I asked about memorable moments, it was the tornado. He said, we'd been out of the office, and we saw that the sky was, so we figured, okay, we're going to hurry up and get back. And they got back, and then I think you may have parked in was it the old Tandy parking lot, and then said, yeah, maybe we ought to just get out of here altogether. He said the other memorable moment was 911, and I remember vividly. That was a Tuesday, and we were a Northeast Leadership meeting out in the Hearst area, and we came down, and I think I walked up into GK's conference room, and that was about the time the second plane hit. And It's just one of those things where you just never forget where you were on that day. He said what I like most is the co-workers that he's had a chance to work with. He said, before I came to work, he said, you always hear the rumors about county employees or government employees in general and the fact that, they really don't work. He said, it took me about 30 days to figure out that was completely false. And that's the thing, again, that I say every month or as we do this. Y'all are some of the hardest working people. You have a passion for service, and it's just, we can't say enough about that. He said it is a family feeling. He said the benefits are great. He said, you 5-year people may have just started thinking about them benefits. By the time you get to this one, and you get to the 15, 20 year, you really begin to look at those benefits. I see those shaking heads out there. That's when it really makes a big difference. Tracy, thank you so much for the 25 years of service you've given to Tarrant County. Next is Judge Wayne Sullivan. He was here, but he had to go back for a trial. And he spent 25 years with Tarrant County. He has just done a great job for us. And when next you see him, thank him for his service to Tarrant County. Next is Chris Williamson. Where's Chris? There he is. Chris is now in Constable Precinct 6. He started out in Precinct 4 and stayed there until about 2001. Moved over to the Sheriff's Office and was in Motor Vehicle SWAT Narcotics Patrol. Stayed there until about 2013. And then he went to Precinct 7 and now is the Chief Deputy in Precinct 6. He said he really feels like the thing that he remembers most are the special units that he's had an opportunity to work with and serve with in the 25 years that he's been with the county. He said what he likes most is the freedom to be able to do the job. And he said getting to know the folks all over the county as well as the various cities. And then again, for the constables, I know for folks in our precincts, the opportunity to work, a lot of the offices and the departments, it's that opportunity to collaborate with cities that I think and other governmental entities that make such a big difference. He said, I, again, never expected to be here this long. He said, I have just really enjoyed the folks that I've had a chance to work with and work for. Chris, thank you so much for your 25 years of service. Next is Tim Bedars. I think I got that right. Started out in the DA's office in the misdemeanor division, then went to the felony, was chief of the juvenile area for a while, and then went to chief of the 371st Judge Westfall's court, and is now back as the chief of the juvenile division. His memorable moments, he was from his first day thinking back on how things have changed since that first day. He said he started out in an old rundown building behind the jail. They swore him in, gave him a code of criminal justice and told him to get after it. He said he also remembers that back then everything was pretty much in total chaos. There really was no desks and maybe a phone. Now everybody has computers, they have the internet, and they have laptops. It really has changed. He said the camaraderie is what he likes most. It's the pleasure of doing a job and being one of the good guys. He is thankful that he's had a chance to work in Tarrant County. When I talked with him 5 years ago, he had 3 kids, a 20-year-old son, an 18-year-old son, a 17-year-old son. The two youngest ones were talking about college. Well, now the youngest is graduated as an engineering student at UTA. Middle son is, they're all out. Oldest son is in California. Middle son's teaching piano and doing some work around this area. His oldest son, I guess, is training as an electrician. I'm reading my little notes here because I didn't have a chance to. As I said, he had gone back to, he had headed up the gang unit for a while, and then he's come back now to juvenile. Here's what I was looking for. When he met his wife, I guess back in '89, she gave you a little pot of ivy. Am I getting this right?
She gave me an ivy plant for my birthday in 1989 because we were right before we got married.
Right before they got married. He still has that plant in his office. He trims it a lot because I said, man, that plant must be all over the place. It's a good thing it wasn't mint. But he said, here was the plant. He said, that plant is older than a lot of the people I'm supervising today. He said, it's been a pleasure to work for Tarrant County. I'm just going to tell you, Tim, the pleasure's been ours, and we thank you so much for the work you've done for Tarrant County. Next is Rick Floyd, Sheriff of Courts. Here he is. Started in the jail, was there for about 13 and a half years. From there, moved to Judge King's court, now Judge Ponder's court. Memorable moment. He said one afternoon there was a couple, he was on the floor and there was a couple of inmates that were getting angry and it just kind of ramped up a little bit. And he said, I finally stepped in, and he said, I realized that when I stepped in that they were the two gladdest folks that I had stepped in because neither one of them really wanted to carry it any further. What he likes most is the chance to work with some wonderful people who love helping each other. I've told this story many times. When he and his wife got married, they loved Garland. This gentleman, every morning, gets up, catches a dark train from Garland, comes over here, and goes to work. It takes him about 2 hours. So that's 2 hours both ways. I asked him about a mental exam the first time. Especially knowing that for a while over in Dallas County, he was represented by Mike Cantrell. And I'm going to call Mike and tell him to watch this. But for 30 years, he's been doing it, still traveling the dark train. He has a daughter that is about to go into the Army. His son is a night merchandiser for Walmart, which I'm sure is an interesting deal. I said, well, what about that? He says, no, I also have 4 dogs. He said, we raised 4 dogs along with the 2 kids. And he said, I cannot thank folks enough for all they have done for him to help him over the years. Rick, I'm just going to tell you, we appreciate very much your dedication to Tarrant County. Thank you. Rosemary Garza, Precinct 5 Court Manager, 30 years. It sounds like a lot. You don't even look 30.
25.
There you go. Sticking to it. Started in the elections department part-time, then went full-time with the county clerk in the marriage and license area, was in the WIC department for a while, then went and started with Judge Valdez in July of '91, and she's now training Sergio over her, and has been there ever since. She said one of the memorable moments, the first day she came to work for the county, it snowed. And she had to walk up to the courthouse. I guess that would have been with the elections?
Yes.
In the Mueller building. And Linda had asked her at that point in time if she was ready to start working. She said, right now, I'm ready to go. And so she did. She didn't want to walk back down there with all that snow. She said, what I've liked most is the opportunity to have worked with Judge Valdez and her co-workers there. She said the people have just been absolutely fantastic to work with. she indicated again that time has really flown by. She said, you know, I really grew up with the county. Right now, they're overloaded with Chisholm Trail. They're overloaded with toll tickets and also e-filing. She said, I just come to work every day loving my job. She has a 6-year-old grandson who keeps her young and busy. And she said, I've always dreamed of going to Hawaii, and she just recently had an opportunity to do that. And as I recall, not today, but tomorrow somebody's having a birthday. So happy birthday tomorrow. That's your story and you're sticking to it. I agree. Rosemary, thank you for your 30 years of service. Again, when you look at it, 780 years of service to Tarrant County. This place just would not be the same without y'all. And we appreciate very much the work you do day in and day out, and the way you do that day in and day out work and not make it routine work. Refreshments back in 504C. Thank you again. I'm just going to have some Girl Scout cookies. No. Yes.
Can I make a quick announcement?
There may have been a misunderstanding between the judge but the request was originally for 44 to use 44
I do have one that's okay, very good. Sorry about that.
We all have to open
But a year ago she had 1,100 hours, so she's been using a lot of it. But the judge wants a double filling the position and double filling well, and so I told Nancy today. Well, so the policy may say she can, but it doesn't. I'm going to, Judge Whitley has asked me to inform him if anybody does this. Didn't you say you're going to? So I'm going to be informing him also. But after talking to Nancy today, I think that she misunderstood. Your face has said differently, but I think that she was talking about vacation only, which is $200. Yes. Well, she has, but she has $600. Well, I think for this morning,
You okay?
understand that she's going to be doing that.
You want a cookie?
But her concern is she going to be, there's a lot of concerns, but I want you aware of what she's doing.
Let me call you.
There it is, right there.
Well, no, I'm not doing that. No, I know, but
I'll move that we receive and file the employee recognition. Second. Have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Announcement, I think.
Yes, this Saturday is Passport Day at the Southwest, the Dion Phillips Bagsby Southwest Sub Courthouse. The Department of State has given special permission to the district clerk's office, the county clerk's office. Pardon, forgive me.
He's eating.
Yeah, he's back there with the cookies. To the county clerk's office, which operates our passport function, to have this day rotating on Saturdays through each one of the passport offices. So this Saturday at the Southwest Sub from 10 to 2, if you need a passport, this is the best time to get one. You don't need an appointment, walk-ins only. Come get your passport this coming Saturday, March 7th, from 10 to 2 at the Southwest Sub Courthouse.
Well, I wanted to share with you all that the judge and I will be hosting a business exchange breakfast with the Grand Prairie Chamber next Friday morning, 7:45. At the Grand Prairie Chamber at 900 Conover Drive. So if you're out that way and you want to talk business with me or the judge and the Grand Prairie Chamber, then please join us.
I just announced that I hope everybody yesterday celebrated the 184th anniversary of Texas Independence Day.
Wonderful.
Yes, sir.
I would like to request that we close today's meeting in memory of Renee Bates, who was I guess for the last 40 years has been the auctioneer for all of our auctions. Very good friend of mine, super great guy. We're going to miss him tremendously. But he's got a good team. I'm sure his wife and the team will continue on with the sale, but if we could close in Renee's name, I would appreciate it.
Yeah. I know that I will remind everybody that today is Election Day. This is the second opportunity for our Election Day to be on vote centers, so you can vote at any location that you want to. There have been conversations that there's some lines, some rather long lines in certain places. I will just say this to remind everybody of this. The individual parties make the decisions on Election Day today where the voting locations will be, and they also make a decision with regards to the machines. We bought new equipment this year that would allow a voting machine to be able to call up any ballot. That's why we were able to go to vote centers. And so we had asked and encouraged the parties to allow us to put a single machine there and have both a Republican and a Democratic ballot on that machine, so that every machine could be available to anyone who was coming to a location to vote. They chose not to do that and said they wanted it to either be a completely Democratic machine or a completely Republican machine. And so that caused us to have to, at each voting location, and there are, I believe, 190-something Democrat and 190-something Republican. That meant we had to determine, or we had to recommend to the parties how many Democratic machines or Republican machines were going to be at each location. That list was prepared. The parties looked at it, approved it. And so, again, over our strong encouragement, they chose not to let us put it together. And as a result, we are having some long lines where people will go in and they'll vote on, they'll see 3 machines set up over here, and there'll be 10 machines not being used at that time at that particular location over there. And so as a result of that, you know, there are a few people who are saying, well, you know, this is a problem, Tarrant County caused this. It was not Tarrant County that made the decision, it was the parties. And so you're going to hear a lot about this, I'm sure. Go out and vote. We're going to try, if we can, we're going to try later on to begin to be able to put out our posts someplace where there may be less of a line or more of a line, to encourage you to maybe consider going someplace else to vote. Again, you can vote at any location today that you want. With that, then, we will move to the administrator's report.
Members of the court, Ms. McMillan is going to do item number 1.
Good morning, Judge, Commissioners.
Good morning.
The Tarrant County Cultural Education Facilities Finance Corporation Board recently approved the issuance of tax-exempt retirement facility revenue bonds for C.C. Young Memorial Home in the amount not to exceed $50 million, the proceeds of which will be used to refinance previously issued Series 1998, 2007, and 2009 bonds, and to finance certain capital expenditures at the C.C. Young Memorial Home facility located off of Lothar Drive in Dallas, Texas, which consists of 225 independent living units, 120 assisted living units, 62 memory care units, and 172 nursing beds and common areas. The notice of intent has been filed. We have received a letter recognizing the county's historically underutilized business policy and their commitment to meeting that. And because this is in Dallas County, we have also received notice that the Dallas County Commissioners Court has also approved this issuance. So today we're asking for the Commissioners Court to approve the resolution approving the retirement revenue facility bond issuance by the Tarrant County Cultural Education Facility Finance Corporation. This is not a liability of the county. It is strictly for tax-exempt purposes only.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Finally, members of the court, on our agenda items, item number 2, we're requesting that the Commissioners Court reappoint Randy Renoir as the Tarrant County Fire Marshal for a 2-year period, which begins April 14, 2020.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you. Ms. Tidwell.
We have one item. We're asking the court to consider the approval and release of the $80,001,000 and approximately of collateral as outlined in your court communication.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Ms. Glenn.
Move to receive and file the personnel agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Receive and file personnel agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passed unanimously.
Good morning and thank you. If I could, Judge, I'd like to introduce our newest staff member in HR before we get to our other items. So Rochelle Neal, who's here in the audience, started with us yesterday. Yesterday was her very first day. Ms. Neal will be, or will serve in the role as PBSC Benefits Coordinator. In that role, she will be responsible for assisting employees with retirement, and she will also be responsible for our customer service function there in our unit. She comes to us with over 20 years of experience in human resources, and in her last role, she was in Kansas City, Missouri, where she served as the Assistant HR Director for the 16th Judicial Circuit Court. So we want to say welcome to Ms. Neal. Thank you very much. And I'm going to ask Ms. Ramnaram to step forward and handle the balance of our items.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So our first item is a request to approve the telecommuting policy. What you have attached to your court communication are two items. One, the revised policy, and second, a spreadsheet of sorts outlining the changes that we've made since we last talked. I will highlight a couple of those this morning for you. The remainder are simply clarifications and language changes that shouldn't make any big difference. Before I do that, would anybody like a paper copy of the spreadsheet? You've all got it? Commissioner, you want one? Okay. As I said, I'm not going to go through every item, but in the left column you see the item numbers. I'll refer to the items I'll discuss by that. The first item under policy statement, item number 1, we added a statement, the Commissioner's Court may make exceptions to this policy as needed. That is a request that you all made the last time we were here. Number 2 is a clarification. First, we added to the definition of telecommuter the full-time exempt employee or other employee as approved by the Commissioner's Court. We will bring back at some point here a couple of exceptions that are not full-time exempt employees that should happen within the next few weeks for your consideration. The remainder of that is a clarification as to the approval process. First of all, employees must receive written approval from their appointing authorities. That written approval will then be forwarded to the county administrator's office and or his designee. Number 3, under policy guidelines, really this is more clarification, but the key part here is that the appointing authorities do have the authority and the sole discretion to determine whether an employee will be considered for telecommuting. The county administrator's office will have final approval, but will not be instigating anybody's telecommuting application. That is within the sole discretion of the appointing authorities. Skipping to item 5, number 4 is just tightening up the language. Number 5, I believe Commissioner Fickus, this addressed a request that you made. We added the words "at least" in that the telecommuting assignments will be reviewed at least annually. And the remainder of that really just clarifies all of our current policies regarding performance management and appointing authorities being the sole determiners of somebody's performance. Number 6, these couple of paragraphs we actually struck. It got into some specifics that we really didn't need to get into, so we struck those, and it really is covered elsewhere. 7, 8, 9, that's really more clarification. Similar language, just clarifying perhaps some roles in each of those areas. Moving to number 10, this was a request I believe Judge Whitley, I believe, made. What we clarified is that telecommuters still cannot or should not participate in employment activities for other employers during their work hours. We changed the language regarding personal or non-county activities, and we changed that to should not instead of may not, a little bit more permissive language. We recognize that something may happen, i.e. laundry, that somebody can do while they're at home telecommuting.
And we didn't say should not, we said should limit.
Correct. Should limit. I apologize.
Yeah.
Yes. Skipping ahead, 11, 12, 13, all more clarification. Skipping to number 14, Commissioner Brooks, I believe this addressed a concern of yours. We removed the restriction that stated a telecommuter had to work from home, so they can work from any location outside of Tarrant County premises. We just asked in the new language that it should be conducive to assigned work with minimal interruptions during work hours. The remainder of these, again, all clarification. So any questions on the telecommuting policy?
Yes.
Yes.
So who all contributed to the review and the feedback for this? Because I remember that there was some discussion about department heads and other electeds. And
after our last presentation to the court, I sent an email to all department heads asking for their feedback. We received, I think, 3 comments. We've addressed most of those within this policy. We'll address some coming up with the exceptions I mentioned earlier. So all department heads, the court members, of course, DA's office has reviewed it, IT has reviewed it, administrator's office.
And then for, you addressed that on item 6. On item 9, how do we come to the determination of the 3 days? Those employees who are approved to telecommute may do so for no more than 3 days per week. Is that just
It's a little bit random. We simply didn't want somebody out 5 days a week, so I think we chose mostly between 2 and 3 days a week and went with 3.
And then, I'm going the wrong way. On section 14, and I know Commissioner Brooks had some concerns about that, but how do we determine the chosen? I'll read the statement. Should the county determine that the chosen off-site workplace isn't suitable for any reason, the telecommuting arrangement will not be approved. So that would be the determination that the appointing authority would make, that it's not.
Could be. I would say it could be the commissioner's court, county administrator, or designee.
Yeah, that's all I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? In that case, we're looking for approval.
I move approval of the telecommuting policy.
I will second it. Any further discussion?
Will you remind us, what did you say would come back next week?
We'll have a couple exceptions, one so far, but I suspect there might be others in terms of what employees will qualify. It won't be next week. It'll probably be a few weeks, so we can have some of those employees, or departments rather, weigh in on who else they might need to include.
No further discussion. Please vote. Motion passes 3-2.
Thank you. Our final item is a request for double filling a position and a waiver for terminal benefits. This is for the medical examiner's office. This is for their senior criminalist DNA technical leader. The double fill would be effective March 31st through April 30th. The waiver would include 400 hours of terminal benefits. The cost to the general fund for fiscal year 20 is approximately $24,800.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Rachel.
Good morning.
Morning.
We have 3 items for your consideration this morning. Our first item is a bid award recommendation for bid 2020-069, signing a contract for toner cartridges, maintenance supplies for inkjet and laser printers. A recommendation be toward a per enterprise basis and discount off list price, awarding to the primary, secondary vendors meeting all specifications.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 2 is also a bid award recommendation for bid 2020-081, signing a contract for the purchase of retirement watches for human resources. Recommendation be toward on a per enterprise basis, awarding to J. Brandt Recognition.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Last item number 3, we are seeking approval of the exemption from the competitive bidding requirements, which is allowed under State Bidding Statutes, Local Government Code, Section 262024A2, for the purchase of drug reagents, controls, equipment parts, and proficiency testing materials for the Public Health Department.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Commissioner Fickus, I believe you have an interlocal agreement.
I do, and with the city of North Mission Hills and the city of Bedford, and move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Are there any appointments today? None. Then you have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of the claims, including the addendum.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the claims, including the addendum. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Briefing items, Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we have 3 items to bring to you this morning. I will do the first one. This concerns continuing discussion as relates to the JPS Health Network Capital Improvement Program. You might remember that last week we came to you and began the discussions to determine how many of the proponents or proposers that you would like to potentially interview. At the conclusion of last week's meeting, we talked about and said we still had some research to do. What we're going to propose today is that of the 8 respondents that we're going to provide their responses to you and ask that you analyze those. I believe we have one more briefing with you, Commissioner Johnson, to bring you up to date on a couple of issues, and we will do that either today or sometime this week. And our goal is for the court to look at those. You've been briefed on various other issues as relates to this, and then come forward next week and identify how many of the firms that you would like to interview, and also a timeline as to when you might want to do those interviews. So if you have any questions or comments.
I hope that we will get it done as rapidly as possible. I've just got to get in. I've got to look at some of the materials and feel a little bit better about how we're going to do it, since the board pretty well pushed all 8 of them back up to us.
We okay with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Shoot for next week.
Thank you. Members of the court, if we can go to item number 2. This concerns the current and emerging health issues. We have a new presenter today. Russ Jones, who is our chief epidemiologist, is here to address the court at this time.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I'm going to be talking to you this morning about 2 different issues. I wonder if the slides would show up, because they're going to be out of date anyways. One of those issues is going to be the coronavirus epidemic occurring in the world, and the other one will be influenza, which many of us have been dealing with all winter. The first one, on the next slide, on global situation, last week was the first time that other countries outside of China had reported more cases in a day than China had. So it's kind of switched over. Although not shown here, the number of cases reported daily by China has greatly decreased. They were up to 2,000 to 3,000, one day 6,000 a couple of weeks ago. They're now reporting 400 to 500 a day, most of those in one province, 20 to 30 in the rest of the country, which shows that they've been able to have an effect with their system in trying to
Is that
control
still
it.
the same province that they had?
Yes, sir, Hubei province, where Wuhan is located.
Okay.
So they're still having a problem there. And Wuhan is known as the Detroit of China. It's where most of their automotive manufacturing is. They're trying to get it reopened, probably. The global case count there was 82,000. When I did this last week, that was correct. As of this morning, it's actually 92,283 with over 3,000 deaths. And not on that slide is the total number of recovered, at least in China, is greatly increasing with over 48,000. Since last week, when we had a little under 60 countries reporting cases, as of this morning, there's now 70. So it's spreading. However, there are reasons to be hopeful that it can be controlled, if you will. Next slide, please. So the next, this one needs an update. This is the U.S. Situation. The travel-related is actually now 17, and in the United States, we're breaking it up separately between those who are coming back from affected areas versus those repatriated by, say, the State Department or from the Princess Cruise Lines in Japan. So 17 person-to-person spread was 2 last week, but with what you've probably heard in California, Oregon, and especially Washington State, that's 26 as of this morning, for a total confirmed of 45. And then those repatriated, we're looking at 45 off the Princess cruise ship now, and 3 from Wuhan. And then on the next slide, our update very quickly, and this was mentioned last week, the testing capability had been delayed due to problems with the test kit that CDC had distributed. The FDA and CDC have worked through that. Our lab is now doing validation, and according to our lab director this morning, hopes to have that by the end of the week. It's looking good, where we can do local testing, which is important for us, because a hospital gets someone in that needs to be tested, and we're having to wait up to a week to get results. It would be nicer to have it within 24 hours so they could do their response a little more timely. Our coronavirus hotline remains active. We meet every day still to discuss the situation and what guidance has been given out and trying to update that. The big thing for us is that tomorrow we will have some more conference calls, beginning with the all-county stakeholder call that Judge is going to be involved with, followed by breakout calls with hospitals, schools, universities, and we're looking at probably providers, individual providers. And that's our coronavirus website that's listed up there. The other issue is due to flu. A lot of people have dealt with it this year. We've had an unusual flu season in that the next slide. The first flu that we saw was flu B, and usually we don't see flu B, not until the end of the year. That started first. That was our first peak. And then the second one was flu A. We continue to have what's considered high influenza-like illness and activity in our jurisdiction. This is what's going on nationally. The red is showing the influenza-like illness being seen in clinics or in ERs around the country. You see a double peak there. That red peak was flu B. The second peak is flu A. We're following basically that pattern. And so on the next slide, if we get to that, I'll just show you what we see in Tarrant County. The green there is this season. And if you look at the darker, thicker blue, it's paralleling what we saw last season, but at a higher rate. We definitely saw a peak at the end of December, first part of January. That was flu B. We have converted over to flu A. It remains high, but we do have 3 weeks of decline. So perhaps by the end of March. And quite frankly, I hope that's the case, because coronavirus causes a similar illness, and we can determine what the difference is if it hits us here. One of the points I'd like to make, we have flu. We don't have any community transmission of coronavirus in the state of Texas or in Tarrant County. The cases that have occurred in Texas are the result of repatriation of the Princess Cruise Line individuals that are down in Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio. So, unlike
I want
Washington,
to be sure they heard that. No confirmed cases within the state. The 6 that are, is it still 6? The 6 that are at Lackland.
The commissioner mentioned yesterday 11.
11?
Yeah.
So the cases there, though, that are there were flown in from either the cruise ship or they were originally came from the State Department employee that came in from there. So no confirmed cases to this point within the state of Texas.
And having said that, it's interesting that even New York has only had 1 or 2, and they have much more travel to the affected areas. So the strategy has been to delay entrance into our country. Yes, sir?
Russ, there has been some speculation that as the weather warms up, the coronavirus will likely begin to tail off Do we know that that is the case scientifically?
We do
Or is
not.
that just speculation?
It's all of our hope.
It's our hope.
It's our hope. It's certain because flu, we know, always occurs in the winter, and part of that is the reason of us congregating together closer and not going outside and having more opportunity to be exposed to it. So the thought is perhaps that'll work for us the same way for coronavirus. But if you remember back 11 years ago when we had the novel flu, H1N1 at the time, it did not stop that summer. Once school was out, the amount of activity went down, but we spent all summer going to wherever people were congregating with outbreaks. And then when school came back in for flu, we had the huge spike in the fall. That could happen depending on how this is transmitted, but it's really a hope that we'll just see a decline. But there's no evidence that we will for sure. I think that's a good question. And the other thing to point out with this is a lot like flu, and it's not flu, but like it, that to control it, we don't have drugs for this. We don't have a vaccine. What we have is probably not shaking hands with people that we normally would shake hands with, washing our hands, keeping your hands away from your face, which I usually sit like this with my hand right next to my mouth and eyes, that kind of thing. That's the personal things you can do. There are other things, non-pharmaceutical interventions, and that's what Washington and the rest of the country will be switching to as we see community transmission, and we do expect it to happen, is these non-pharmaceutical things, encouraging people to protect themselves. Environmental protection would be like often touched surfaces, doorknobs, handrails in a long-term care facility, places where you touch a lot and disinfecting those often. Our healthcare facilities having to wear, and they're already doing it, wearing PPE. And then there's social distancing, staying 3 to 6 feet away from people, which when you think about 6 feet away, that's all you guys are sitting within 6 feet of each other, and you're looking at each other suspiciously. So, and this is different too than 2009. It hit a younger age group. Those that were over 50 weren't affected as much. This coronavirus is affecting those of us who are older more seriously. So,
over what?
60.
60.
Speaking as the second youngest member of the court, I like to hear that.
Russ, will you speak to should members of the community wear masks?
The CDC and the Surgeon General are on record that masks won't do a whole lot of good for you. Let me address that in that the masks that you get, the surgical masks, they have openings on the side, and so it doesn't prevent you from breathing in. A lot of people are buying actual filtering respirators, and ideally you are fitted to those that make sure they work. Without that, you really don't know what kind of protection you're getting. In Asia, you'll see pictures of a lot of people wearing masks, and the Chinese government required it going out to public. They have a different culture. What masks will do, it'll prevent you from putting your hand in your mouth, touching your nose, okay? So
Still leaves your eyes exposed.
Still leaves your eyes exposed, and so it doesn't do a lot of good there. And so that's the problem with people buying masks is it's not leaving enough for our healthcare facilities, and all of them are reporting around the country, including our own, difficulty getting what they need. Because when they're in someone's space to give them care, they definitely need the PPE, a mask, eye protection, and gowns. So thank you for that question. That was good. Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
And then finally, members of the court, on item C, this is a discussion item. It concerns a potential transportation bond program. I've asked Mr. Skinner to put some material together for you, just some very brief material. This item actually is something that Commissioner Fickus had requested that we place on the agenda to begin discussions as it relates to a potential new bond package dealing with transportation. So,
morning, Judge, Commissioners.
Morning.
We'll just give you a brief update on the 2006 Transportation Bond Program. This program began in summer, actually, of 2005, And at that time, the Commissioners Court approved the bond program policy, and part of the goal here originally established was to be able to assist with congestion mitigation. We wanted to see some of our intersection improvements that would help with air quality. Safety was also an element to that program. And so we began to notify the local cities, Council of Governments, TxDOT, of our intentions. Well, when we sent out established the call for projects and notified the cities, we've got 129 projects. So we knew that was even with a $200 million bond program, would be difficult to fund all of those improvements. So we asked, at that point, we established what was called the Project Evaluation Committee. And so each court member assigned 3 individuals to that committee, so there were 15 total. And with the assistance of a consultant, we were able to take that 129 projects and prioritize those and essentially lay the $200 million over that and fund as many of those as we could. And through that process, we were able to come up with a project list that initially we had about 55 projects that were funded, but we found that through some savings that in the early part of our program, we were able to actually pick up what was called the Tier 2 projects. So there were about 71 projects that were funded in that, the main part of our program. I may use the term obligated simply just to identify the main part of the program. So with the Project Evaluation Committee, they began meeting in September of 2005. Our last meeting was in late January of 2006, so about a 5-month period to analyze those, research those projects, and prioritize those. Rather condensed period, but we were able to get it done, obviously, in that amount of time. Where we are today, the total funds that are committed to the projects at this point is $180 million, $180.2 million. Of that, we have about $4.5 million in 2 projects that have not gone to agreement yet. But one of those, I think we're going to have. You should be seeing that agreement here in the next few weeks. And so, at this point, then that leaves $19.2 million of the program that is uncommitted, and a lot of that is essentially discretionary funds that are remaining. And part of what's driven a lot of that is because through the years we've seen realized excess funds from projects that amounted to a big portion of that $19.2 million. And so that's the reason why those funds are still available at this point. And so I show that we've got about 125 projects that have been funded in the program. 87 of those are complete, so you're looking at about 70% of those projects. That's both the obligated and the discretionary that are already complete. The rest of those are, for the exception of the 2 I mentioned, the rest of those are in some phase of advancement, design, construction, what have you. And so that's where we are at this point. I'd take any questions that you may have.
So, Randy, I know from my perspective in Precinct 3, I thought this bond issue was one of the most successful programs that the county has done in years, because we involved pretty much all the cities, or most of the cities in the county. It did take some time to put that program together, and I'm assuming that what was $200 million that we put up, cities, feds put up 200 plus. So we probably had $500 million, would you think, 600 million projects that actually got funded and billed. If we move forward with that, what would be, or I know we'll have to discuss this, but that number would probably need to be in excess of 200 million, possibly.
So,
and again, we need to involve the COG again and the RTC, I would think, notify the cities, from your perspective, what time frame do you see from, let's say, now or shortly this spring moving forward, that we could actually go to maybe an election?
I would say that typically these types of programs take at least a year to really ramp up and develop properly. I think in some of the concerns and struggles that we had initially with the 06 program was just the condensed time that the cities would have to provide the information that we really needed. Which we got the information. It's just that it would have been to have more time during that process would have correct,
So
and then
that's
for
on
us
the front
to.
end.
I'm sorry.
That would be on the front end.
Right. Once the policy is developed, and so that would help us too with the evaluation and the analysis phase. I know we went through the 6 meetings, I believe, that we had with the committee, which I thought generally worked out pretty well for us. But they were condensed. It would be nice to have a little more time in there to. The other part of the struggle that we had too at the time was the opportunity for cities to submit projects for federal funds to the MPO, and that of course took some time to assess and analyze as to what that means with regard to the cost of the projects and the counties involved. So to essentially more time would certainly be helpful to us.
And once the cities came forth, and what was the guideline for you need to get your project started within, was it 3 years?
Originally, that was what we had asked.
Is that a realistic number?
You know, at the time, we were asking that because we wanted to see projects that were essentially ready to go, and asking them to have projects that could be started construction within 3 years seemed reasonable. Unfortunately, at the time, obviously, we ran into the recession, the big recession of 2009, 2010, and that delayed quite a few of the projects. But once we got,
saved us a lot of money.
Yes, we actually saw a lot of our excess funds realized during that time.
Right.
But once the economy picked back up, those projects moved pretty quickly.
So would you think 3 years is an appropriate number, or should we look at 5 years? Because the city may, when we come, if we do this, the city may come out and say, you know, I can put that in a bond issue, not this year, but maybe in 22, 23. So we would be ready to start our project maybe in 24.
And I think that's a very good point, Commissioner, because in some of the projects that we've seen, they were funded through the city's bond programs, and that again, as we're discussing today, takes time to put in place. So that would make sense.
And that might help us also, because in the 2006 bond package, the court collectively made a decision that package, the sale of debt, was going to occur over a 10-year period,
right, so
that it wouldn't have a significant impact on our tax rate. And so there were some projects that we could fund right up front, but it didn't. You know, we sold every other year, so that we had adequate funds for the court members, and also tried to meet a timeline that Randy and his group were working on.
And not raise the tax rate.
That's correct.
right. Which is a real key factor, obviously.
Sure.
So you're saying that we might look at having the election either November of 2021, November 2022?
That would be reasonable from our perspective with regard to developing the program.
So that means if we're going to do it for 2021, then we need to get on it pretty quick.
Yeah.
The other thing, though, I think we've got to look at, it's been 2006 since we did a bond issue. Do we have other projects within the county, Mr. Phillips, that we might need to look at and consider, you know, the possibility of putting those on? Because, you know, I really would not want to get to the point where we're looking at doing projects every other year or every 2 or 3 years, and so we're gonna do it, let's get our list and begin to have discussions among our other areas as to what we're gonna do, or what we might think we wanna do.
We can explore that and bring some recommendations back to the court.
We've talked about doing something with the criminal court building, and certainly that's gonna be, if we do that, I think that's gonna be of the size that we need to ask the taxpayers for that. I've always kind of in my own mind said if it's gonna cost in the vicinity of $100 million, we're going out to the voters. Or at least I'm gonna suggest that we go out to the voters.
So Randy, you had mentioned that there were 71 funded projects, and then I think if I wrote this down right, 70%, with about a 70% completion rate, if that's both of the obligated and discretionary, right? And then the remaining are in some phase of advancement. Did I get that right? Because I think I was the only person not here then, so I want to make sure I understand what happened.
Correct. There's only two that are not. One is you'll be seeing that agreement pretty soon, and the other one we're working with the city on a proposal that they may bring to us.
And remember, there were, you wouldn't remember, but each commissioner had a certain amount.
Sure.
So even though we had all those projects on there, you know, you could have selected another project and worked with any one of your cities to say, kind of our basic requirement was if we're putting up $1, you gotta put up at least $1, back to what Commissioner Fickus. But in many instances, we may have put it in with a state project or a federal project that would pay back 10 to 1 or 9 to 1. And so we were able to leverage those dollars pretty significantly.
Very good. And then the project evaluation committee, was that like a citizen advisory group, or was that internal?
Yes.
And I would say maybe be careful with setting an advisory group, because they basically, we went with their recommendations. It was kind of one of those things where it was probably a little bit more than just give us advice and then we'll go back in and tweak it. It was, here are your projects, go through and rate all of the projects that were submitted from top to bottom, and then we knew how much money we had, and that's where we stopped. And then if a project dropped off for whatever reason, and again, because of the recession, that's why it's taken so long, I think, for us to have spent a lot of that money.
It was really slow at the very beginning.
It was because you went, you know, we did it in 2006, that would have been November, and a year and a half later, 2008 was when the recession hit in that December.
We had a consultant, correct?
Correct. And
that helped guide you, staff, and the Citizens Advisory Committee and the court.
they were a big part of it because they actually helped us with the analysis of the projects themselves. So they'd be looking at traffic modeling, level of service, those tools that would help the project evaluation committee prioritize those projects.
Was it 55 or so projects initially?
Initially, I'm sorry, I would have to, I can get the exact number for you, but it was approximately that amount.
55, that's what I wrote down.
Yeah, if we do this, if the court makes a decision to move forward on this, we would engage another consultant because that consultant group really helped us and the entire team, including the advisory committee, in reaching its goal.
They absolutely did.
Particularly in that, again, compressed time frame. They were a big part of that.
So then what are next steps on this?
Well, I was just to say, I don't hear anybody up here objecting.
No.
It's not on our agenda to vote on today or to take action today. We could, but I would, my thought would be, map out a plan. Let's get it back for discussion to, if we're gonna appoint people and go forward. But that also has to be, we have to ask Mr. Phillips, I know he's got some master plans he can pull out and dust off. Do it quickly.
There's a lot of work. There's a lot of work that needs to be done in order for you all to start.
Well, I think he's leaving again the next month. Is that right? Ballpark estimate?
Ballpark estimate.
Okay.
So
that it?
We understand that that's the direction you all want to move into, and then we'll start. Yes, Your Honor, that's all we have on the agenda. You do have one audience participation.
Yes.
Thank you.
Martin, is it Cone? If you would, please come forward. Repeat your name and your address, and let me just make sure you understand, because it's not on our agenda today, we cannot respond to any questions or comments that you make. By law, we're not allowed to. And so normally what we do is, if you do have questions or you have suggestions, we'll get you to get with Mr. Manius afterwards, and we'll see if we can work out whatever the issue is or the discussion to your satisfaction. And if not, we can eventually put it on the agenda, and then we can have a dialogue back and forth. But we're prevented by law from responding today.
Okay, thank you, Judge. Hello, my name is Martin Coyne. I am a resident of Tarrant County with an address on Retta Mansfield Road in Mansfield. I'm here today to speak on behalf of our four-legged friends, or man's best friend. I'm here to ask the court to introduce an ordinance for Tarrant County to ban outright the chaining up of or caging of dogs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, such is the situation in my neighbour's lot. The dogs in my neighbour's yard are treated like prisoners despite the fact that they have not committed any crimes. Law officers from the Tarrant County Sheriff's Department have been out to my neighbour's property several times to check on the dogs, of which there are currently about 15. The law officers have informed me that there is no law in Tarrant County to prevent the owner from chaining dogs up for the rest of their lives, as long as the chain is at least 8 feet long. What I say to this is, give me a break. Now we know what the problem is, the law. The 15 or so dogs chained up in my neighbour's lot 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, in the cold of the winter and in the heat of the summer. The absence of any law or ordinance to prevent this practice is an embarrassment to Tarrant County. This practice is outlawed in most countries around the world, but yet it is allowed to exist in the land of the free. I would hate to walk up to a soldier and tell him, thanks for fighting for our freedom, and then tell him or her that we imprison dogs in Tarrant County just because we can. I have lost count of the number of times that my wife and children have been awoken at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning because the dogs are barking their heads off because they have been spooked by an unfamiliar noise. I have also lost count of the amount of times my neighbour has offloaded a shotgun to quiet the dogs down during the day. Imagine your neighbours offloading a shotgun on a regular basis. The lack of ordinance when it comes to owning dogs in Tarrant County means that I can be sold a dog by anybody in this room, bring it back to my backyard and stick it in a cage until the day it dies. This is utterly unacceptable. This is the year 2020. This is America, the land of the free. So I am asking the court to put a stop to this outrage now. I have with me pictures and video of the scene in my neighbour's yard. However, no matter how many pictures I show you, they will not replace the act of any member of the court coming out to Retta Mansfield Road so that you can see what's going on for yourself. I finish by saying, please help the dogs. They don't have a voice. With that, I submit this speech to the court.
Give that to Mr. Manius. Boy, would I love to be able to talk today. But I can't, because she'll put me in jail. Talk with Mr. Manius, and he will help you to understand the authorities that this court has with regards to the matter you spoke about.
Okay. Did you come here?
Yes.
Okay.
And with that, we will recess our open meeting and proceed to close to discuss items exempted under Section 551.07. You heard it, didn't you? Good. You shouldn't have admitted that you heard it.
Because they'll keep doing it.
I'll do that. We'll get that taken care of.
Having returned from our closed session, we'll now address the following matters. Are you sure?
We are here with one final request approving the transfer of an associate judge position from the 323rd Court to the 233rd Court. We are also requesting a waiver of terminal benefits for this position with a fiscal impact of approximately $25,700.
Second.
Motion is second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
We're closing and Renee.
So, Your Honor, members of the court, if we can go to item number 9, concerns the approval of certificates of self-insurance. We're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve and also receive and file the certificate of self-insurance for Randy Renoir as the Tarrant County Fire Marshal in the amount of $2,500.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion is second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And we're adjourning in memory of Renee Bates.